What's up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Daft Previews. We do have a 10-game slate on the NBA, so that means there's a whole lot of action which is about to go down. In today's video, I'm going to give you guys some of my best bets. We're going to play around with Props Madness. We're going to go through the tool to see what insights and analysis I can give you to hopefully give you an edge when it comes to picking your best bets for this upcoming set of games. Before we jump into it, we have to reflect, take a look at the games that just went by. So it was opening night. Didn't get off to the best start, I'll tell you that. I'll own it. Went 1-3 on my bets that I shared on the last video. And the winner of the day was Anthony Davis, who took his over in points. That cashed with ease. Everything went the way I expected it to. 35, 36 points from AD. Absolutely murdered them. Onto the losers. We had Jalen Brunson over his points line. Didn't get there. Scored 22 points in 24 minutes. Things would look great if he played 36-40, but I did not see the blowout happening. And because of that, Karl-Anthony Towns didn't get close to hitting his rebounds prop as well. He only played 22 minutes. Dante DiVincenzo, I think that was a really good look for his points plus assists, but he shot poorly in that game, not gonna lie. The opportunity was there, the minutes were higher than most people would have expected, and if his line stays the same, it's going to be a bet that I do take again in the near future. I promise you that. My only regret from the day, now that I think about it, probably betting on both Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. You can really manage risk a lot better if you pick one player or one prop from each game, because if the script isn't in your favor, then you're only losing the one bet. This particular game, 2 bets, the script completely went against what I was thinking, therefore I lost both. So moving forward, I'm going to try to limit things down to one player from each game, try to find the best bet within that game, and then we roll from there. You live and you learn, and the great thing about the NBA is there's so much action. You can definitely improve throughout the season. So we'll go through this 10-game slate. I'll share with you some of the bets that I've already put down, the reasons why. Then we'll play around with Props Madness. I'll give you some insights. I'll show you how to use the tool, and hopefully we can find some more gold. Now, if that sounds interesting, let's go. So this is Props Madness. I had a few comments in the last video saying, what happened to Outlier? What's wrong with it? Yada, yada, yada. Now, there's nothing wrong with Outlier. If anything, I still honestly love it. Props Madness, though, gives you real advanced, detailed data. So this tool is probably not for everybody, but Outliers, I would say, is a bit more basic. Props Madness, very detailed, and you can really refine things from there. I personally use both. Props Madness, pretty new to the market, and if you can learn how to use it, this is going to give you a massive edge over everybody. So I also took some feedback on. I've zoomed in. Some feedback from the last video was that it was a little bit too small, hard to read. So I have zoomed in a little bit. So hopefully that's nice and clear for all of you guys. Tilt your phone to the side if you're watching this on mobile. But let's talk about some picks that I've already got down. So the first one is in the Milwaukee Bucks versus 76ers, and I am taking Giannis Antetokounmpo over 28.5 points. So using Props Madness, I was really able to refine things down here for Giannis to find a really good bet, in my opinion. Firstly, looking at his shot chart, he scores 70% of his points within the restricted area, which is right under the basket. Looking at Philadelphia last year, bottom 10 or bottom 8 really in terms of defending that area. So the matchup is already good, right? Where Giannis scores, 76ers ain't good at defending. Now, if we look at the play type analysis, Giannis scores a lot of his points in transition and he gets to the free throw line. 76ers, bottom 10 in defending both of those. So what you can do once you've identified that, you can play around with these filters to really refine the data to see how Giannis has performed in similar matchups. So right now I'm looking at transition. Let's look at the bottom 15 teams at defending the transition. Let's look at the bottom 15 teams in defending the restricted area where Giannis scores a lot of points. And once you refine that data, you can see in 24 games against these teams last season, Giannis covered this line in 17 of them, 70% hit rate, averaging 32.8 points per game whenever he's faced with a similar matchup. You can even check the head-to-head numbers here, and you can see that he's covered this in 2 out of 3 games against the 76ers. The game he went under, he was 10 from 21, didn't shoot very well at all in that game. So Giannis, I feel like he has a bounce-back year. He wasn't as great as he probably possibly could have been last year, dealing with a couple of injuries. I really like him to bounce back today. So we can see 17 out of 24, so we do like that. Shot zones are fantastic. And another thing to really call out here is no Chris Middleton. I believe he's out for this game. I don't believe we have a huge sample size of games without Chris Middleton, but let's just check it out. There we go. So 8 games without Chris Middleton where he's had a similar type of matchup. He averaged 29 points per game in these matchups. So I do like it. So Giannis to go over his points line. That's definitely one bet that I've already got down. What's another one? Orlando versus Miami. And this is one that's already started to move, and it's one of Franz Wagner. And we're looking at a under. So under 18.5 points. This did open up at 19.5, but it has been bet down. But I do love this as well. So having a quick look at his shot chart, he scores a lot of his points in the restricted area as well. But if we look at Miami, top 2 in terms of defending the restricted area. We look at his play type analysis. He scores in the pick and roll, gets to the free throw line, and in transition. And you can see it on the screen right here. Miami, top 2 pick and roll ball handler defense and in transition, and bottom top 3 when it comes to free throws. So what this is calling out here is that this is a very difficult matchup here for Franz Wagner. The one thing I want to look at here is let's refine these filters. So looking at the ball handling aspect, let's just look to see how we went against the top 15 teams against ball handlers. Let's see how we went against the top 15 teams in defending the restricted area. And this is a type of game where you would expect him to play between 28 and 38 minutes, I would say. So let's refine his minutes a little bit. And what we can see here is he's hit this line in 6 out of 16 games. So he averages 17 points per game in these matchups. And if you look at the head-to-head data, 3 games against Miami, 15, 19, and 13 points. Game where he scored 19 points, they won that game by 18. I do not see that happening in this game. I think it's going to be pretty close. Miami, pretty much full strength, but at the same time, so are the Orlando Magic. So Franz Wagner, difficult matchup, pretty much fading him and taking his under in points. Now, another play that I do have in mind, and I've probably already bet, is one on Trae Young, but his points line has moved like crazy. I ultimately took his points plus assists. I think I got 34.5. It's up to 36.5 now. So it's probably not at a place where I bet it, but that was a lot lower. I think it opened up at 32.5, ridiculous like that. But I do love the matchup here. It wasn't necessarily a props madness thing that I went through, but I do like the matchup here against the Brooklyn Nets. They're not good defensively. So one filter we could play around with is just look at how he performed against the bottom 15 teams in defensive ranking. We know that his minutes are going to be high in this one. Usage rate's going to be up. No DeJounte Murray. So that always makes things a little bit easier if you're betting on Trae Young. He's also got great scoring numbers against the Brooklyn Nets. Played them twice last season. Check that out. 52 and 39 points plus assists for Trae Young against the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets haven't improved defensively. If anything, you could argue that they've gotten a little bit worse after losing Mikal Bridges. They were terrible against guards last year, and there's been no changes to their roster for me to think they're going to be a little bit better. So if we look at Trae Young's minutes, I would expect him to play at least 35 minutes in this game. So if we play around with his minutes filter, move it up to 35 as a minimum, then it starts to look a lot better. So 11 out of 18 games against the teams with a bottom 15 defensive ranking, averaging 41.1 points plus assists. Now, we do know late in the season, he was also hampered a little bit, slowed down by a bit of injuries, whereas this matchup is great, and I expect Trae Young to really explode, not only in this game, but I think for the season. I think another person who's a good look is Jalen Johnson. I'm only betting on Trae Young, but Jalen Johnson was someone who really made my shortlist, and purely because he's going to see a massive spike. Now, props madness probably won't help us much in this game with this type of analysis, but I would expect him to play about 35 minutes a night at least. No DeJounte Murray, so his usage rate is going to improve crazy. I think his points and rebounds is probably a good look. Obviously, I've called it out. I'm riding with Trae Young in this one. Another play that I'm looking at here is DeJounte Murray, now that we're actually speaking about him. And I'm looking at under 20.5 points. Now, this doesn't necessarily have much to do with the data. Last year, he averaged 22.5 points per game. He was the clear number 2 option for the Atlanta Hawks, but Trae Young did have a lot of time injured, so there were a lot of games where DeJounte Murray was the number 1 option. This season, playing with the New Orleans Pelicans, they were thirsty for a new point guard, and they have a lot of mouths to feed. Think about the pecking order and who should be expected to score their points. You would assume Zion, probably the number 1 option offensively, then Brandon Ingram, then CJ McCollum, and then DeJounte Murray, right? So he's probably He's the fourth mouth to feed, and I don't think he's going to get the volume that he needs to score this many points. So I do like the under here for DeJounte Murray. His first game, I think the line's a little bit too high at 20.5. So I am looking at the under there, and you can get it for close to plus money as well. So we're seeing some for minus 104, which is pretty good. That's FanDuel. 5 minus 115, minus 110. So you're getting pretty good odds here if you take DeJounte Murray under 20.5 points. I'm not overly worried about last season's data, to be honest. He's in a brand new city, and he is the point guard. I think there's going to be a lot of pass first type of stuff happening. If we look at how he scored a lot of his points, you can see a lot of it was done as the pick and roll ball handler. The Bulls last season are top 8 in terms of defensive ranking. But the one thing to really call out there is there's no Alex Caruso in this lineup anymore. So they're probably not going to be as good defensively. Regardless, even if they're middle of the pack defensively, I don't see DeJounte Murray seeing the type of volume that he needs. In terms of where they were poor defensively, it was really defending the three-point line. So the Bulls, not great at defending the three-point line last season. DeJounte Murray, pretty balanced in how he scores. Last season, he started to shoot a lot more threes. So that there was a lot of stuff attacking the rim and a lot of work in the mid-range. But I just don't think he's going to get I don't think he's going to get the volume regardless. So that's one play that I do like, and I've already got down Murray under 20.5. Another play that I'm looking at, well, that I've already bet, is on Zubac. And I'm looking at over 13.5 points. Now, this opened at 12.5. It's been bet up to 13.5, but I still think it's a pretty good look. Now, why do we like Zubac in this game? One, usage rate and opportunity is going to be really high. The Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, obviously injured again. George, he's not even there. So I think that really opens things up for Zubac. We're going to see a lot of James Harden type of actions in these games. And James Harden, a whole lot of pick and roll. From the middle of last season, I would say, towards the end of the year, the Clippers, Harden especially, they really started to click. They found their groove, a lot of practicing together. They really improved in that pick and roll. Harden's assist numbers went up, and Zubac's points numbers went up as well. So if we were to look at his numbers and break things down, I think given the state of the Clippers, he should see at least 26 minutes moving forward. So the minutes and opportunity should be there. And if we look at the games where I'm about to remove Kawhi Leonard, but let's just leave that out for a second. Let's just make sure we include James Harden. So games with James Harden where he plays at least 26 minutes. This is shot chart. Obviously, all his work is in the paint. 100% of his points come from in the paint. And looking last season, the Phoenix Suns, pretty soft on the inside. Bottom 10 in terms of points allowed in the restricted area. So if we look at how he scores, it's in the pick and roll. That's his core. The Phoenix, mid-tier in terms of defending that. So the way I would filter that out is let's just remove the top 5 teams at defending the pick and roll man. And if we look at the shot zone, Phoenix were bottom 10. Let's just filter it to the bottom 15 teams to see what we're looking at. Now, in these games against these teams, Zubac did hit at a 50% rate, but he averaged 15.1 points per game. Really do like the matchup. They do have some new additions with Kevin Porter. He could be a high usage rate guy. They've got Derek Jones out there as well. But I think, especially at the start of the season, you're going to go with a lot of the combos that you feel most comfortable with, what you're used to. And I think we see a lot of James Harden and Zubac pick and rolls. I think we see a lot of that happening. If we look at how he performed in head-to-head matchups against Phoenix in 2 games, 6 points in one game. In one game, he only took 4 shots. And then in the following game, he scored 19 points in that game. 8 from 9. So the volume should be there. If he gets close to 10 shots, he's over in points given his efficiency. So I do like Zubac to score some points against the Phoenix Suns. I do have some looks on Friday's game, but I'll obviously do another video for that. But let's click through the games that I haven't touched on. Let's talk about a couple of leans that I have. Looking at the Pacers versus the Pistons. Pumping the brakes real quick. Now, one quick way to build your bankroll is to really just take advantage of promotions and offers that are available. It's the start of an NBA season, so there's going to be a lot of promotions going on. So my advice to you is take advantage of all of those. I've got a couple of partners. You check out the links for them below, from Better to Boom to Chalkboard, Dabble Fantasy, Parlay Play, Rebet, right? These are the guys that I've partnered up with. All of them have deposit matches at the moment. So if you deposit with all those guys, you'll get so much extra money to play around with. Plus, these guys are giving out free squares, and they are free, and you just have to pair them up with one other play, and then you can make a lot of money that way, really just taking advantage of those promotions. So if you want to help me out, these guys will pay me a little bit of dosh if you sign up with them and play. You check those out. Links are in the video description below. Let's get back to the games and the insights. Where was I? Pacers and Pistons. Probably my favorite play, what I saw in this game, had to do with Tyrese Halliburton. I noticed his assist line was moving up and down. It's currently at 9.5, so it's a pretty good number to hit. But I think the way that I'd be looking at it is to potentially take Tyrese Halliburton for a double-double. The 10 points seems like a pretty safe play for me. Now, one thing we can look at here is we know that Detroit Pistons not a great defensive team. So we can look at Tyrese Halliburton's numbers against the bottom 15 teams in defensive ranking. We know that both teams are going to play with pace. So it's going to mean there's a whole lot of opportunity. So if we try to break down the pace and we looked at the fastest teams in the league, let me just make sure I get all these filters right. There's the top 15. So we've seen 25 games last season, Tyrese Halliburton against the fastest 15 teams in pace. With in the bottom 15 in defensive ranking, we can see that Tyrese Halliburton averaged 10.5 assists. He hit this number in 68% of the games. He did struggle at some points throughout the year with injury, though, but I'm assuming he is back at full health. So the minutes should be up there. And if we project him to play at least 35 minutes in this game, Tyrese Halliburton, there's not a big sample size. Let's get a little bit conservative with it. Games, let's go 30 minutes. So if Tyrese Halliburton play over 30 minutes against these teams where the matchup, I would say, is advantageous, poor defensive ranking, then we start to see the numbers look even better. 12 out of 17 games, a 70% hit rate against this number of 9.5. Minus 128 on FanDuel. You can get it at minus 120 on DraftKings, which is the best place. But where I'm sure you can get better odds is if you were to take Tyrese Halliburton double-double. Some places like Bet365 offer you awesome odds if you take his over 9.5 assists and then you pair that up in a same-game parlay, him to get 10 points. I think that's a really good look. I might bet it. I'm close to, but we'll see where we land. So I do like that for Tyrese Halliburton. Looking at Cleveland Cavaliers versus Toronto Raptors. Now, the play that I probably liked the most was Jarrett Allen or Evan Mobley points. Now, the reason why I didn't bet it is because they both have a very slate type analysis and have got the same type of matchup. So I'll just take you through Jarrett Allen as an example. I might take both of them for 10 points, perhaps. Who knows? See what the odds are like. But Jarrett Allen, he scores 71% of his points in the restricted area. 95% of his points come from within the paint. And if we look at the defense for the Toronto Raptors last season, we can see that they were bottom 5 in defending near the rim and mid in terms of defending in the paint outside of the restricted area, right? So automatically, we know when it comes to shot zones, this matchup is a great one. So we could automatically filter Jarrett Allen to the games where he has an easy matchup, right? Next thing, if we look at play type analysis, he scores a lot of points as a pick and roll man, gets to the free throw line, and does work on putbacks. The Raptors, one of the worst teams at limiting points from putbacks. Pick and roll, they were pretty much average. So if we're looking at an average team there, you want to exclude probably the best teams and the absolute worst teams. So you're looking at kind of the teams in the middle. And we can see Jarrett Allen averaged 17.2 points per game in these matchups, 8 out of 15 as a hit rate. In terms of his minutes, I would expect to see Jarrett Allen playing in the high 20s at least. I'd say minimum 28 minutes, but it doesn't awfully change things too much. So Jarrett Allen has a great matchup. Evan Mobley also has a great matchup. Look at his shot chart, very much the same, quite similar. 88% of his points are in the paint. Scores a lot from the pick and roll as well. The reason why I probably lean more towards Evan Mobley is that he's worked on his game. He can score a bit more in transition. Outside shots looking good too. So Evan Mobley, probably the one I'm leaning towards more than Jarrett Allen, but I think one of them has a big game tomorrow. I'm not sure which one it's going to be, so I'm not necessarily betting on it. Then we have the Charlotte Hornets versus the Houston Rockets. And there's a couple of good things here. Green, the bag, so he could be due for a big game. If we look at how he scores at the rim or he shoots 3-pointers. He's your modern day wing. That's pretty much how he does. But up against the Charlotte, and surprisingly, the Charlotte Hornets didn't give too much points to the pick and roll ball handler, though. So that matchup is somewhat difficult and was somewhat good in transition as well. Looking at the opponent defense, though, this matches up well. The Hornets didn't defend the three-point line very well, and they didn't defend in the ring very well either. So when it comes to shot zones, I would say Jalen Green has an excellent matchup, but in terms of how he scores his points, probably not the best one. So we can see it right here. Last season, Charlotte, they were terrible on the glass, so they allowed a lot of putback points, and they were awful at defending spot-up shooters. So that might open good looks up for someone like, I don't know, a Reed Shepherd, a Jabari Smith, perhaps, maybe a Fred VanVleet. So given how bad the Charlotte defense was, and probably still will be, it's a little bit difficult for me to find someone for the Houston Rockets to confidently lay some money down on. So I was thinking about is LaMelo Ball. I think he has another great season, provided he can stay healthy, right? He only played 19 games last year, so missed a whole lot of time. Very similar to Jalen Green. Scores around the ring or he scores above the break. Now, if we look at the Houston Rockets, their defense, they didn't let many points in around the rim, and they were somewhat average defending the three-point line. But if we look at play type analysis here, we can see LaMelo Ball, 41% of his points come as a pick and roll ball handler, right? The Houston Rockets weren't great at defending that. The Houston Rockets were great at defending spot-up shooters, though, and LaMelo does score a lot of points that way. But they fouled a lot. They gave up a lot of free throws, and LaMelo very capable of getting there. So his matchup honestly isn't too bad. It's not a tough matchup by any stretch of the imagination. He did play 2 games against the Rockets last year, 19 and 15 points though after 23 minutes. Didn't shoot the greatest percentage, and his volume also wasn't very high at all. So LaMelo Ball, I think there's going to be a stretch of games where you definitely bet on him when the matchup is right. I don't know if this matchup with the Houston Rockets is going to be good enough. 23.5 seems like quite a high line. Another look there could be is for Brandon Miller. Expected to take a leap this year. A pretty strong year last year, I would say. Similar to Jalen Green, a lot of three-pointers, scoring around the rim. He does score a lot as a spot-up shooter, though. And as I just mentioned, the Houston Rockets pretty good at limiting spot-up shooters. Matchup's not a difficult one, but it's not an easy one for Brandon Miller either. But another play that I was thinking about, probably my favorite play from this game, if I was going to bet it, it would probably be an under in Miles Bridges, so under 19.5 points. So Miles Bridges scores his points as a spot-up shooter and in transition. The Houston Rockets top 10 defensively for both of those things. Matchup somewhat difficult. Also, I think LaMelo Ball takes a leap this year. I think Brandon Miller takes a leap this year, meaning more shots, more opportunities. And I think the person who's going to have to give up a little bit is probably Miles Bridges. I don't think he's going to be as effective this year compared to how he was last year, where he averaged 21 points per game. So if I did have to take a bet on this game, it would probably be an under for Miles Bridges and his points. And then looking at the Utah Jazz, the Grizzlies, now the popular play is going to be around Ja Morant. Probably his assists, maybe his points. I'm not there yet. We don't have a big sample size of data. We know what he's capable of, but will he? So with Ja Morant, I'm kind of just sitting and waiting to see where he goes. His assist line's at 7.5. You can probably lean to the over if you expect the Jazz to be terrible like they were last season. So I think the assist could probably be a good look. But someone like Zach Edey could be a good look as well. I know this is a very popular play, Zach Edey, especially if Jaren Jackson Jr. is still out. Zach Edey should get a good run. His line set at 10.5 points and 8.5 rebounds. And I've got to be honest with you, that probably seems just about right. The Jazz have their own big man in Walker Kessler. Not big as Zach Edey, but he's pretty much big enough, right? One of the biggest guys in the league. Zach Edey hasn't played against this level of competition before either. So even though Zach Edey, I think he's very capable, I don't know if I could get there and take a bet just yet. And look, with so many games on the slate, there's so many opportunities. I just don't feel the need to really force up a bet right now. The Warriors versus the Blazers. And I would probably say my favorite play in all this is something around Scoot Henderson. That's what I'm thinking. So his points line's at 12.5. His assist line is at 4.5. And you can see there's a lot of green on this graph, right? But the Portland Trail Blazers had a whole lot of injuries last season. Before I start breaking down Scoot Henderson, this will be the first time I break it down, by the way, so we might find some gold here. Let's just break a couple of things down. Up against the Warriors, Scoot Henderson, he scores his points above the break, and he gets to the get labs around the rim, right? He's your modern wing and guard. That's how they tend to score. Opponent defense, the Golden State Warriors, they allowed the least points at the rim. They were somewhat susceptible to some outside shooting. And if we look at play type analysis, he scores most of his points as a pick and roll ball handler. The Warriors were top 10 in defending that. So the points prop for Scoot Henderson, probably not the way, I would say. But could look at something like his assists. He's going to be the main ball handler in this game. He's going to be the main ball handler. Sharp is out. He's moved on. So I think the opportunity is going to be there. Scoot Henderson's going to get some minutes. I would say he plays at least 30 minutes in this game. He's in his new starting role. And if we look at the games last season, he had 27 games where he played at least 30 minutes. He covered this line of 4.5 assists in 22 out of those games, an 81% hit rate. He averaged 7.4 assists per game, right? So that's pretty nice. He had 12 assists the last time he played against the Warriors. He did play 40 minutes in that game, though, but Simons was out, Jeremy Grant was out, and Shaedon Sharpe was out. So missing a whole lot of talent. I'd like to filter this game down to how did he play Simons was in? How did he play when Jeremy Grant was there? How did he play when Eden was there? So let's get those three players in, and we can see he played 5 games with all 3 of those guys in the lineup where he played more than 30 minutes. If I just remove the minutes filter, you can see that there's 16 games. He only covered this line in 4 out of 16 games, but his minutes weren't very high in all of them. So if we filter that back, a minimum of 30 minutes, we can see the lowest assist total there, 4 against the Clippers. They lost by 12, and he had 4 against the Timberwolves. Outside of that, 5 against the Suns, 9 against Minnesota, 8 against the Celtics, averaging 6 assists per game pretty much when he plays with Simons, Grant, and Aiden, and he plays at least 30 minutes. Line at 4.5 for it. Not bad, minus 115. So 4.5 assists for Scoot Henderson. It might be something that I can get around with. So it could be something that I look at, but we shall see. We've got the Splash Brothers. What's Steph Curry at? His line's at 27.5. Obviously, he scores above the break. Portland, top 4 in limiting points from above the break, which is pretty crazy. Steph Curry can score in a variety of ways. And for the most part, the matchup, not an easy one, but it's not a difficult one either. It's the Portland Trail Blazers after all. But Steph Curry at 27.5 with a matchup like this, I'm not overly excited by playing that. Jonathan Kuminga had somewhat of a breakout year last year. Could be a good one, right? Portland, bottom 2 in defending the transition game, and Jonathan Kuminga scores 21% of his points in transition. So that could be a good look. He covered in 1 of 4 games against Portland last season, though. Yeah, I'm not absolutely loving it. This is a quick look of how I use Props Madness. If you're interested in checking out Props Madness, links in the video description below. You can use the code DAFT and you'll get 25% off. So yeah, I still got a lot more research to do. Not going to lie to you guys. So I'm going to jump out. I'm going to edit this thing up, get this video out to you guys as soon as I can. And one other thing I'd encourage you to do, sign up to my Winnable. So the free Winnable if you have to. I still send out daily free picks. So it's a great place to get more bets and more things than just NBA as well. So be sure to check it out. But if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We are growing fast. We picked up 10,000 subscribers in the last 10 months. Hopefully, we can pick up another 20,000 subscribers throughout this NBA season. I think that'd be awesome. And to do that, I need your help. So please like the video, subscribe, and I'll catch you boys in the next one. Best of luck to you. Best of luck to me. And let's go.